So the credible accusations have been released by the Catholic Diocese of Sacramento, Sacramento's diocese, which runs from Sacramento all the way north to the Oregon border, 20 counties, 1 million people. So it's out. It's not anything new, things that we've suspected and seen through the years at other dioceses throughout the country, throughout the world. I guess the question that we're talking about today with you is, what happens now? Where does this all go forward, and where are we with all this?
If I could jump in, I'm leaning to you because you are Catholic. You said you were an altar boy.
Yeah.
How does this sit with you and your family? How do you address your kids?
I remember my mom, who's now 90, saying she was told as a young girl, stay away from so-and-so and so-and-so.
Wow.
So it's not a new problem with the church. It's just something that obviously has happened for so long that has to be dealt with. And in a social media age now, people are talking and communicating, maybe even more so than ever, about something happened to me, something happened to you,
Sure.
What do we do now, sort of thing. So we kind of bantered about a little bit before we started this about, and we're in the meeting, could the Catholic Church allow priests to marry?
Yeah, that's the question I've always wanted to ask.
Okay, there's obviously a sexual repression which is asked of people who are nuns and priests, and I know multiple nuns and priests who have married because they just, it just happens that way. Yeah. So would that solve things? And obviously reporting it, does that help? And where do we go, Carlos?
So just real quick, we were outside the diocese this morning
right.
doing live shots. So people asked me what I was doing there, and the first response I got was, "Let them marry." And this will
No kidding.
Saying,
okay.
Let them marry.
I had
them
about
marry
three
all the
people. 3 people walked by and they said that. Another person also said, "Please keep calling on the Catholic Church to report these accusations.
Yeah.
Maybe they will come to an end."
But I've got to jump in. There's a tremendous percentage of molestation and pedophiles that are indeed in committed marriages.
Exactly. In the meeting, we talked about that, this happens in the Catholic Church, and it may not happen. It absolutely happens in other denominations.
Societal problem.
And that's what it is. It's a societal problem. So I think the issue is that we probably need to address that. And unfortunately, the Catholic Church is what's shining a light on something that is a really huge stain on our society.
I would just say, when you look at the facts, I know just in general, children, every 9 minutes, one of them is sexually assaulted, according to RAINN, and I know this is just in general, but I always ask myself, that could be my son. What are the warning signs? That's the first question I always ask myself. And they say acting out, showing aggression, bedwetting. Those are all signs that something isn't right. And I know we're talking about church, but in general, as a mom, I want to know how to protect my child because this is not okay.
It's funny. Growing up, my mom, y'all heard stories about my mom. My mom is so open, it's not even funny. But this was a conversation my mom had with me since the beginning.
Yeah.
So you got to have the conversation. You have to be open enough as a parent to have a very, very uncomfortable for both parties, because I remember it, very uncomfortable conversation. But at least that is a step. It may not prevent or it may not stop, but it's a step in the right direction for parents. Have the conversation.
Yeah, have a conversation about people at church. Is that really something
Well,
that's
there
necessary?
there are vulnerable children who are alone with members of the clergy.
Sure.
That it's if my kids are going somewhere, they're usually with a group. They're never alone with an adult. But in a church, through the years, you would have a homeless child, a vulnerable child, a child who goes to a priest for confession.
Right.
Yeah.
And if the priest is a pedophile, that's right there alone, my word against yours. So it's rare in this day and age where you have my child, your child, alone with a strange adult.
It's a unique situation.
Yeah, and that more so happens in a pastoral or priest situation.
You also brought up something that I thought was really good. There are so many protections that I think the Catholic Church have put forward now. I know I'm working in youth ministries, and probably every church I've been a member of, they have background checks now. Like, you have to do this. There are so many rules and restrictions when working with children, even adults. My last youth group was like an adult. They were 29. I had to jump through a lot of hoops just to work with people in a church thing. And I'm so happy to hear that the Catholic Church and a lot of other churches are taking those steps to protect parishioners and members.
And they have too.
We talk about how to address our children and how to talk about this. I don't know about the parents here, but at the earliest age our children could start to soak in the information, at an age-appropriate conversation level, we started talking about, you know, these are your parts.
Yeah.
Only you access these parts. No one else is to touch these parts. If anyone does, please tell mommy and dad.
Please.
Sometimes I'll be like, my son's 12, I'm like, let me give you a hug. I want a hug. Give mama a hug. Okay, but if he says, I don't want a hug, then I had to be like, respect that. Okay, I'm not going to give you a hug. But as a mom, especially Lebanese, I want to be all up on loving and kissing him and stuff.
Right.
And that's something I've had to scale back too.
A
Right?
challenge that I've seen and I've heard of actually from a lot of Latino families is the fact that they don't feel the necessity, the need to talk to their kids about these things going on at church. It's a sacred place. Nothing wrong will happen to you. That's the place you'll be safe, if any place.
Right.
So how do we kind of convince them that they need to have these conversations? It's been a topic of conversation for decades that I can remember.
You mentioned culturally. I think culturally, also generationally, our generation,
that's true.
our parents, we just didn't talk about this. It wasn't that open, and you weren't invited to have these discussions. I think we're getting better, but we're certainly not there yet.
Let's get to our Facebook viewers right now. You guys are bringing up some really interesting things. What are people saying?
Well, Brenda just says, hey, I work at church and I got fingerprinted. Same
Right.
with schools too. I got
Right.
fingerprinted too.
This list has been long time in coming, and I would say these aggressions happened 70s, 80s, 90s. Since the church initiated safeguards with background checks and see something, say something, since about early 2000s, there have been very, very few accusations of what Carlos was covering this morning, which were egregious from the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s. So the church has already locked down. What they're dealing with today is an era, a long era, where there was no lockdown. So I think the church already has safeguards in place, which have been working for over 10 years.
I want to say something too, and I think it's good for the church to actually be this transparent. I know that the accusations are old and they're decades old, but I know that there is a thirst in the community for people who believe and don't believe, because I have a lot of conversations with non-believers, because I'm out here like, hey, what's up? They need to see this. They need to see the church be transparent, be held accountable. The thing that people hate about the church is the hypocrisy, and I think this is a step in the right direction towards like, hey, we are owning up to our faults, and not only are we owning up to them, we're trying to rectify them.
Yeah, it's amazing to go through the charges and see like a priest's second charge, which resulted in his dismissal. The first time I was reading about this priest, and he was caught in bed with a 12-year-old girl by the parents of the 12-year-old girl, and the priest vigorously defended himself in front of his parishioners, saying it was his word against theirs. Nothing happened. So the second time, he got booted. So what happened to the first time? It's like the parents caught, and it's like, well, and so many people enabled these priests through the years. Parishioners who defended the priest against the accusations of that girl who made it up, and it's like, you read this stuff now, and it's like, that's sad.
That goes back to a discussion we had last week where we villainize victims. We have to stop doing that.
Victims always who come forward are the ones who get, even with the King's Coach thing, the victim emerges and it's like, hey, no. You know, it's like, wow, why even come forward if you know you're going to get crushed like that?
If you've ever been victimized, you haven't said anything, it's never too late to come out.
I agree.
Yeah.
Before we wrap, we want to say thank you to Mike Tang. We want to say thank you to Linda, Brenda, Rogelio. I'm messing up that name. And Laurel. Thank you. And Laurel. We appreciate you guys for watching and commenting. We're out of time.
Okay, thanks for watching us here on this extra edition.